Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, how are you getting on? Welcome to a brand new Fallout 76 video. So, yesterday, Bethesda did their Fallout Day celebration stream thing, which was mostly a promotional opportunity. There seem to have gotten some interesting reactions out there, looking at the comments under their stream and stuff. There seem to be a bunch of people who are kind of disappointed that we didn't get any news about the TV series or about Fallout 5. To be honest, that was never going to happen anyway, so I'm not too troubled. You know, the show has yet to start filming the next season, and Fallout 5 won't be talked about until the end of Elder Scrolls 6, and that won't be out for at least 3 more years. So I don't think that was ever going to happen. But we do get a look at a whole bunch of new stuff coming to the current Fallout iteration, which is 76. So Bethesda talked about, primarily, first up, the upcoming update in December, the Gleaming Depths. They talked about the new raid there. I'm not going to go into that in a great deal of detail here. I might cover it more later. I'm not personally very impressed with this whole thing and the attitude behind it. I don't think it's particularly good. I'm slightly less peeved than I was about the whole thing. But yeah, I'm not particularly blown away by that. They also talked about 4-star legendaries, and I will put a link up on one of the cards in the top corner to my video on the upcoming available effects that will be available as 4-star legendary effects. There's some really cool effects in there, so do check that one out if you haven't already. But yeah, to be honest, I'm not too impressed with this overall either, given that the game is suffering a horrific power creep and has been doing for years, and is getting easier and easier, and the introduction of 4-star legendaries is just going to make that far worse. So yeah, mixing some of those in with the others would have been a better approach in my opinion, but yeah, no, they had to go completely the wrong direction with that, so it is what it is. However, what I am much more impressed with is the other thing they talked about in a decent amount of detail, and that is the upcoming playable Ghoul player type. Yeah, been looking forward to this. The idea of playing a Ghoul in Fallout has been mooted for many, many years and something people have wanted for a long time, and this looks potentially quite cool, and we've got some brilliant new details. So regarding the Ghoul, I'm thinking this is looking pretty cool. I'm definitely wanting to dive into this and engage with it and check out the whole new style of gameplay. If nothing else, it should be a nice refresh for people who've been playing the game for a long time to get something that is quite fundamentally different into the game. Should make for a nice sort of refresh to one's playstyle, I think. We got a bunch of details, some of which we'd had before, some of which are new, and some of which are expansions, things like that on what we already knew. So perk cards are probably the biggest, most interesting, exciting thing here. We know ghouls are going to have a load of new perks available to them, and we've actually got a little look at some of them here, so we'll jump into that in a second. Let's go over the other bits first. So as a reminder, you will need to be level 50 to become a ghoul. Once you've passed that particular threshold, you'll be able to begin the quest line that concludes with your ghoulification. And yeah, we knew that already. That's cool. Definitely looking forward to checking that out. When you become a ghoul, we now know, we kind of suspected anyway, we've seen a bit more detail, that you'll get a new character creator option, basically. So much like you did when you first dived into the game and designed the look of your character, you'll be doing it again, but as a ghoul this time. So once you complete that quest, that whole option will come up. We got a little sneak peek at the screen for that. It's much of what we would have expected. It's basically the same sort of thing, but with a couple of key differences too. Regarding the ghouls' sort of abilities and attributes and the things that make them stand out, we know that they are going to be not only immune to radiation, but they will actually be healed by it. This is to be expected. We kind of speculated that before we knew anything, and then obviously it's been confirmed since. So that's quite cool. We also know that increased radiation levels will actually give new abilities and attributes to the ghoul. So exactly what those might be, some are a bit vague, although we've got to look at some for right now. I'd imagine there's more going to be sort of behind this than what they've shown so far, so I'm looking forward to finding out about that. But yeah, we're going to get a whole load of buffs and boosts and things, some of which will tie into perks as well, which is, again, not massively surprising. As a playable ghoul, you will not need to eat or drink, which is an interesting take, quite cool. But to flip it around, you will need to keep an eye on your feral meter. Now, exactly what's going to make this go up or down, I don't know yet. It'll be interesting to find out. It might be damage taken, something like that. It might just be exposure to radiation or a combination of factors. But there are pros and cons to going feral, I would guess. They haven't mentioned any cons yet, although it does seem likely to be a thing. One thing they have shown us now is that you will get a substantial boost in your melee combat abilities. So if you want to play a melee build, you can lean into playing as a feral ghoul and go crazy either with punching weapons or with two-handed, one-handed, whatever you like. They didn't show anything like chainsaws or anything like that, but I would imagine those would be affected as well. But yeah, if you really want to dive into a melee build, this might actually have a chance of making it viable, which has not really been before. It was not impossible, but wasn't great. One thing I would like to see Bethesda do that there is no mention of here, I guess they probably won't, is another pass at improving the way melee combat works. As it stands, the hit reg stuff did get improved a while back, but it's still not great. You know, prime example is if a feral ghoul dives at you and you jetpack up into the air and the ghoul flies underneath you, you should not be taking damage from that. But because of the way the damage is calculated, sometimes you get hit even though you're miles away from where the ghoul actually hit. That's a problem and it needs sorting out, like yesterday. Unfortunately, I don't suppose anything like that will actually be sorted. I'd like to see more dynamism, I guess, which is a hard word to say apparently, in terms of swings and attacks and stuff like that being added to the melee combat approach, just to make it a bit more interesting to engage in that style of combat. Again, I don't suppose that's going to happen either, but it would be nice to make the whole thing a bit more interesting with different types of swings and blocks looking a bit more interesting, that sort of thing. But I would be surprised if they went down that road. Still, being able to dive into it and actually having it be viable might be kind of fun. One of the things that has been chatted about is the relationship between the various factions and groups and ghouls, and how will that affect you. Well, we know there are going to be unique dialogue options and narrative elements based on the fact you've become a ghoul. That makes sense in an RPG franchise, so definitely pleased to see that. One group that they have specifically said do not like ghouls and will not get along with you are the Brotherhood of Steel. And we see a few clips here and there that imply that the Brotherhood of Steel will probably shoot you on sight if you are a ghoul. Which is, there's two ways that Brotherhood of Steel questline can go, and I feel like one way would be far more tolerant of non-feral ghouls than the other, but maybe that's a little bit too difficult for them to do and maintain. Maybe it's a bit of a problem in the event that you're in a group with people who might have made different choices. I don't know. But it looks like they will just, generally speaking, attack you on sight. However, if you want to complete their questline or otherwise interact with them, you've already become a ghoul, it is apparently going to be possible to fool them so they don't realise you are a ghoul. Now, they haven't shared any details on how. Maybe there'll be an item, a mask or something like that you can pull over, or some variation. I don't know. It'll be interesting. Wear a helmet so they can't see your face. And yeah, you'll actually be able to go in, interact with them, and have a relationship with the Brotherhood of Steel, as long as they don't find out you're a ghoul anyway. So that's an interesting take, and I'm looking forward to finding out more about that. Yeah, it makes sense. It stops you being shut out of certain quest lines, while also allowing you to have ghoul-centric tone and take on things, which is quite cool. Get to live that ghoul life in a way that ghouls certainly would have to. So, with all of that stuff covered, let's have a little look at the new Ghoul perks. And there's some fun stuff in here. We've got to see a few of them in sort of a little bit of detail, and there's a few more here that we can see the titles of, if not the way they actually work. So here is a perk screen. We'll start at the top left and work our way across. Now, obviously, the row at the bottom where all the perks that are not currently equipped are, none of those actually show any ghoul-specific perks, so we can ignore that for the minute. But first up, we've got, under Strength, Radioactive Strength. Now, my guess from this is that the more irradiated you become, the higher your strength goes, but making those melee-focused builds, in particular, more powerful, which would make sense, so I seem to be leaning into that a little bit here. Arms of Steel, though, that's curious. I'm not sure what that might do. Open to thoughts on that one. That one's the one I really can't speculate on what it might do. The name is not giving a lot away, though. The next one, however, Bone Shatter, is melee attacks have a 40% chance to cripple a limb at 2-star. Obviously, the more you rank it up, the more chance. This will definitely be ghoul-centric, as we can see by the ghoul icon on the in the picture there, which is a bit of a helpful giveaway. And yeah, I would have thought melee would have had a chance to cripple effect anyway, but maybe this is new and they're just making it ghoul exclusive. Certainly seems to be the case, but every other combat type has a chance to cripple effect that is not exclusive to ghouls, so I don't know. Maybe it's just because superpowered strength from being a ghoul they're implying you have, and they're leaning into it that way, but it's an interesting caveat there, I think. So, moving over to Perception, Breathe It In. Red resistance reduced by 100. In this case, obviously, that's the 2-star. It'll presumably be, what, 50, 100, 150, I'm guessing. Pulling numbers out of somewhat wild speculation there, but still. Now, we know that the more irradiated you become as a ghoul, the more powerful you get, sort of. So, it would seem that having reduced radiation resistance means you'll be able to keep your power level up higher, or more easily. So, I could see the appeal there. Kind of wondering how this is going to work in relation to Bloody, because Obviously, people use rads to keep their health low. You won't be able to do that as a ghoul, because radiation heals you. So how does the whole health going up offset with, rads going up and the effect of being more irradiated when you're a ghoul? I don't know. It'll be interesting. It may be that it still works much the same way and your maximum health is lowered, but your damage output goes up in other ways that are somewhat different and unique compared to Bloodied. But we'll have to look into it and finding out a little bit more, because the exact details are a bit obscure there. I hope they managed to avoid it just feeling like a re-skinned, for want of a better word, reflavoured version of Bloodied, and I hope it's a bit more interesting than that, but we'll see. There might be some interesting possibilities here. Thick Skin. So there's a few perks here under the endurance tree, and Bethesda do seem to be leaning into trying to make endurance more viable than it has been. I know there's some cards here and there that people do make use out of as it currently stands. There is a load of changes coming to endurance and other perks as well come December. Obviously, the Ghoul stuff won't be out until March, probably. But in December, they're making a bunch of changes to make endurance considerably more viable. Like I say, I know there's a few that are vaguely useful, but it's going to get a lot more useful now. So Thick Skin, I'm guessing, is just a damage resistance perk. Probably a Ghoul exclusive, because all the others are. So that would make sense that, ballistic damage in particular gets reduced as this perk is in effect. Whether or not it'll be affected by your radiation level is an open question at this point, but it might be. Radiation power. And this obviously means the more irradiated you become, or probably means the more irradiated you become, the more you get an effect. What that might be is still a bit open-ended, but normally you don't get damage output related to the endurance special attribute, so I wouldn't think that, but who knows? Be interesting to find out. Glowing Gut means eating food and consuming drink inflicts more rads on you, so giving you more means to boost your radiation level should you need to. Inside West Tech, you can pick up this glowing goop, this green glowing goop that will irradiate you. I believe it's quite popular with Bloodied players. Carry some of that around in case you need to push your rads up a little bit. This will basically make that stuff more effective, for example, if you wanted to go down that road as a ghoul. So, useful potential perk there, I think. So, United Ordeal. Personally, I might have named this a little bit differently and called it Shared Ordeal, because this as a charisma perk means that when you're in a party with another ghoul, you get extra special points. Which is, nice. So, we've got a few more we can have a little look at as well. These ones are highlighted individually. So, first up, Glowing One. First thing I want to talk about here is, as you can see, the edges of this card are a bit torn and damaged. I think we can probably ignore the big luminous green stroke around the outside of it there. Probably just there to highlight it for the sake of the video. But the damaged edges and stuff, I suspect this will be the equivalent to a shiny animated card that we get for other perks and that come out of perk card packs, as certain of the other ones don't have the damaged edges, whereas this one does. So that will be my guess. It's an animated version of it. That's why it looks a bit different. It requires 7 charisma points on this, and you passively provide glows to nearby player ghouls in your party when you're highly radiated. So glows, as we find out from another perk that we'll have a look at in a minute, seem to be a kind of attribute that you can build up and then spend to create effects, like using a number of glows to increase your damage per shot, for example. That sort of thing. So it seems to be something that a resource that you kind of build up and then spend and build up and spend, which is common to a number of games, but an interesting addition to Fallout for sure. Giving your teammates the ability to do more, to use more glows and have more effects. It's basically a support role, hence the big shield there, which is interesting. Brick Wall. This has got a lot of appeal, being immune to staggering. Simple effect, let's be honest. Staggering is great fun when you inflict it on the bad guys. Less fun when they inflict it on you. So, yeah, I can see some appeal on that. I suspect, hunch here, but we'll have to see, that for a lot of players, especially if you're going into what looks to be a strength build there, you might find a more practical use for that special point than this particular perk. But if you're building a different type of character and you've got points to spare, chucking this perk on would be a nice little thing to have, I think. Radiation power. Da, da, da. So this was one that we saw earlier, was it? Yeah, this was one earlier that we couldn't see the details on. Okay. Expend a small amount of glow per hit to deal 10% bonus damage to targets. So there you go, for a cost of 5 points. Interesting. It's not listed as 5 points. If we go back and look at the actual full perk loadout, this is only listed at 2 points. So I'm guessing this is perhaps a picture taken at different stages of the development process, because it looks like they've increased the cost of it. or decreased it maybe, one way or the other anyway. And yeah, for a cost of glow, you can deal a little bit of extra damage, so that's definitely useful. It's an endurance perk. It's unusual that an endurance perk would deal damage, but hey, it makes endurance significantly more useful, and ghouls very, very durable. Going back to previous comments, one of the things that bugs me about the Gleaming Depths and the raids and stuff is how group-centric it is. It's kind of designed to a certain extent to exclude the solo player, and I'm not impressed with that. I don't think that's necessary at all. They've avoided doing that thus far in 76's life, and doing it now sits very, very poorly with me. However, the shift towards endurance might make characters sufficiently more durable that the possibility of soloing it becomes a bit more viable. Of course, it does also mean you have to boost your power level to a point of absurdity, so when you're playing any other part of the game, you're going to be even more ridiculously overpowered than we currently are, which, you know, the game already lacks challenge. It'll mean that this is the only place with any challenge, so that's definitely not good, but at least we might be able to engage with this new content. Anyway, moving on. Battle Genes. This is the last perk that we have seen, and it was thrown in sort of later on in the presentation here. While in combat, gain 1 HP per second. It's not a lot, but a constant passive health regen is not an unappealing prospect, I have to admit. So yeah, definitely like that. Looking forward to seeing a few more of these and exploring the Ghoul in more detail when we get the chance. My hunch, and it's purely a hunch, is that the PTS for the Ghoul and stuff will probably open sometime in January with a view to the full update going live in March, because they're talking about early 25 for the release of the Ghoul, and the first update in 2025 would normally be March, which is why I keep saying that. So we'll have to see how that actually goes. But yeah, all in all, pretty cool to have a little look at the Ghoul in general. Most of the other stuff in the presentation, not particularly new or revelatory at this stage, but yeah, some interesting stuff. There was one thing they did tack on the end that is a little hint that might be arriving sometime in 2025. They're working on putting fishing into the game. It's in development. They've not given the slightest whisper of when it might be, other than probably next year sometime. But hey, for those who are into fishing, it might be coming 76. To be honest, I don't quite get why people are so crazy for the fishing in video games. I don't have a problem with it or anything, but I don't quite get it either. It's a bit of a head-scratcher for me, that one, but oh well, it's a thing, and it's coming. Assuming they can make it work, as is the eternal caveat with game development. So, there we go. Hope you guys found that useful and informative and are interested in the Ghoul. I think it'll be a really cool potential refresh to the way we play. At least I'm hoping that's what it's going to be. So, obviously, as somebody who's been playing since technically slightly before launch, given they played in the beta, then a refresh would certainly be welcome after all this time, and kind of inevitably, right? But yeah, looking forward to it. Anyway, if you did like the video, please do consider dropping subs and likes. I very much appreciate. Down below, got social media links and channel memberships as well if you want to support the channel that way. I very, very much appreciate. And hopefully we're getting back into streaming next week, so all things being equal. So I do hope you'll join us for that as well. We've got Fallout 76, and we've got some Starfield, and we're going to play The Axis Unseen, and we've got piles more other stuff coming down the pipeline as well, so lots to keep us busy. But for now, thank you very much for watching. I look forward to speaking to you all very, very soon.